The Paradox Pokemon are a big new selling point of the latest Gen 9 Pokemon games. Powerful variants of known Pokemon from the ancient past and the distant future. The reception towards these new Paradox Pokemon has been pretty mixed overall. They are a cool way to breathe life into Pokemon we know and love, and iterate on them in interesting ways. Paradox Pokemon like Great Tusk and Iron Valiant are good examples, very effective as enhanced versions of the Pokemon they're inspired by. They share similar tools with their original Pokemon but also feel distinct enough in their gameplay and flavor. But others, such as Iron Thorns or Iron Jugulis, feel like complete flops, inferior to the Pokemon they were inspired by and not very exciting or notably distinct on their own. At least not in any way that's interesting or fun. These Pokemon having strange two-word names is a real mixed bag as well, and I can't help but feel that the future Paradox Pokemon in particular just feel a little lame, since all their names start with the word Iron. The future form of Volcarona is called Iron Moth, and this has to be the least creative Pokemon name in the whole history of the series. And I've said this a million times at this point, but I still can't quite believe that they earnestly named a Pokemon Iron Jugulis and put it into the game. And don't even get me started on Iron Mugulus, the most controversial being to ever exist. The Paradox Pokemon are definitely a bizarre group, but most of them are quite powerful competitively. They might as well be legendaries with their high stats and powerful offensive abilities. These Pokemon have defined Gen 9 competitive. So let's take a look at all these Paradox Pokemon and rank them from worst to best in a competitive context. Subscribe to the channel so we can send some support to Trapinch, who has gotten himself into a bit of unexpected trouble. Thank you. At the very bottom of the list is regrettably Brute Bonnet, the past Paradox form of Amoonguss. Unlike Amoonguss, Brute Bonnet is a much more aggressive Pokemon with a high attack stat and a grass dark typing and access to good dark type moves like Sucker Punch and Crunch. It's got a strong physical move pool with close combat Seed Bomb, etc. And it has access to Spore to put the target to sleep. So similarly to Amoonguss, it's gonna be defined by its access to Spore, and then upon putting the enemy to sleep it can hit pretty hard. Unfortunately though, Brute Bonnet has always suffered from its terrible grass dark typing, leaving it ×4 vulnerable to Bug and also weak to a lot of common attacking types like Fairy, Ice, Fire, Fighting, and more. Brute Bonnet is a little bit too slow to have a typing vulnerable to so many things, and even though it has a high HP, its defenses are not incredible. This Pokemon also suffered significantly because of the sleep ban in Gen 9. In Gen 9, competitive single sleep is completely banned from being used, so the one thing it did have is now non-existent. Even with sleep, this wasn't a great Pokemon. It had so many shortcomings. I mean, even clicking Spore isn't as powerful as it used to be, with like Goldengo in the game, Garganacl in the game, grass types being immune to it, etc. But without Spore, Brute Bonnet is truly just not a very functional competitive Pokemon. It's ranked all the way down in the ZU tier, and it's also inferior to the Pokemon it was inspired by. Amoonguss, even without Spore, is still sometimes used in OU for its ability Regenerator and its good utility move pool and stuff. But Brute Bonnet, not so much. Up next is Iron Thorns, the future Paradox form of Tyranitar, and this guy's atrocious in all avenues. In every way, this is terrible. It is much worse than its original inspiration of Tyranitar. Tyranitar still sets sand on the field. It's still ranked in UU. It's pretty good. It's fallen off a little bit, but it's better than Iron Thorns here, who was supposed to be new and improved Tyranitar from the future. The name is not nearly as cool as Tyranitar, which inspires awe and wonder within me. Iron Thorns, it sounds like they made that name with 5 minutes left on the clock to submit this Pokemon. It's a rock electric type, it's ×4 weak to ground, and it has the ability Quark Drive, much like every other future Paradox Pokemon, which grants a boost to your highest stat if electric terrain is active or if you consume a booster energy item. This can be used as a Dragon Dance sweeper, and unlike Tyranitar, it's probably a bit better for that because it has Stab Electric, which is cool into many checks like bulky water types and Corviknight or something. Supercell Slam is a great electric type physical move. You also have Ice Punch for coverage, and you have many of the same move pool options Tyranitar has. Perhaps you run Stone Edge for some rock stab. But it's kind of slow. It is probably going to need to Terra to be able to boost, which is, it makes it a Terra hog. You don't want to run something that sucks without Terra. That's a big resource sink, and I can't help but feel it's just a little bit disappointing in every area. Flavor, gameplay, concept, it's just not all there. Not a fan of Iron Thorns, I must admit. Up next is Iron Leaves, the future form of Virizion, and it's another disappointing one in my eyes. The name is horrible. It's going to be a common theme here, but beyond just the name and, you know, they made it into a robot, how original. It's Grass Psychic type instead of Grass Fighting type, which is much worse. It's way worse. Grass Psychic is a terrible typing. Psychic is such a bad typing in modern times, with weakness to Ghost, Bug, and Dark being so damning, and then Grass just adds so much baggage on top of that with a ×4 Bug weakness and Fire and Ice and Flying weaknesses. It's absolutely atrocious. Iron Leaves, it feels pretty similar to Virizion. It's more of a physical attacker, and it has the move Psy Blade, which is its unique move. 80 power, 100 accuracy, physical attack with a boosted damage in electric terrain. Setting electric terrain is really difficult. Even though Miraidon could set electric terrain in the past up in Ubers, no one was running Iron Leaves up there. There were way better future Pokemon up there to run. Beyond that, you get a Grass Psychic stab combo. Psychic is not even a very good offensive type. The stab combo is not the best. At least you have close combat. Your attack stat is impressive, 130, but there's just so much going against this Pokemon. It struggles to hit the field. It is not really doing anything that other similar Pokemon and even fellow Paradox Pokemon aren't already doing. Even the original Virizion in the past had defensive benefit and interesting applications beyond what Iron Leaves is capable of. And what makes this Pokemon feel even worse is that it's not even bad in a funny way. At least some bad Pokemon have comedic value. Iron Leaves doesn't even have comedic value. It's just kind of plain and boring. I would like this Pokemon to leave at its earliest convenience. Thank you. Up next is Scream Tail, past Paradox form of Jigglypuff. And this is a crazy one. I'm sort of mixed on this. I think I like it, but I don't know. Scream Tail is a weird name. In terms of the design, I think it's pretty cool. Fairy Psychic is a fun type combo for it, and it's interesting because it's a bulky utility special wall with massive speed, and that is quite unique. Its stats are not the best, with special attack and attack being quite low, and compared to other similar fairy type utility Pokemon in the format like Hatterene and Clefable, Scream Tail is lacking in its defensive value. Like Magic Bounce or Magic Guard are much better than just Photosynthesis, which isn't really the best fit on this Pokemon. But it does have access to Encore, which is great in the Gen 9 OU metagame. It's got Wish as well, which is a fairly scarce option these days. And with its high speed, it can actually outrun stuff and hit them with Dazzling Gleam sometimes, which is good. Maybe Roaring Moon before it boosts up, or Great Tusk or something like that, if they're not boosting up their speed yet. So it's an interesting and very unique Pokemon, but unfortunately a little bit awkward competitively. Up next is Slither Wing. In terms of design, I think this is one of the better ones, actually. It's very distinct from the Pokemon it's inspired by. It's a bit of Volcarona, but it even has some inspiration from Larvesta, the prior form. Love the visual. It's bug fighting type, which is very distinct, and it's more of a physical attacker with 135 base attack and an uncharacteristically high special defense for such a Pokemon too. A pretty interesting Pokemon all around, and it has a good move pool too, with options like First Impression for that bug type Prio, U-Turn for pivoting, Close Combat for a good stab option, and other nice physical coverage. Slitherwing is ranked in the RU tier. It's suffering a little bit from being outclassed by other similar Pokemon, especially Great Tusk is the big one. But even like Zamazenta fills a similar space, in OU at least. In UU, I recall Slitherwing being pretty good for a while, but I suppose that's in the past. These days it's RU ranked. It has some value sometimes on OU teams. It can be good in Sun because of the Photosynthesis boost, which is an ability shared by all ancient Paradox Pokemon, granting a stat boost to your highest stat if Sun is active, or if a booster energy is consumed. So Slitherwing can be a great breaker on Sun teams. An Assault Vest set is pretty good because your base special defense is decent, and you can pivot, and you have First Impression for Prio and a unique defensive profile compared to other similar Assault Vest pivot Pokemon, like perhaps Primarina or Iron Crown. Slitherwing is definitely distinct from all of those. I really like the Pokemon. Unfortunately, it is definitely on the lower end of the list in terms of competitive viability though. Up next is the one we've all been waiting for, Iron Jugulis. Ladies and gentlemen, can we get a round of applause in the comments section for Iron Jugulis, the most beloved Pokemon ever released? They are writing stories about this Pokemon. I'm sorry, Pikachu, but you are yesterday's mascot. It's Iron Jugulis as the face of the franchise moving forward, and I couldn't be happier. Iron Jugulis was personally named by none other than George R.R. Martin in collaboration with the Pokemon Company, and it shows. That's all I'll say, it shows. Iron Jugulis is a dark flying type Pokemon, which is distinct from Hydreigon's Dark Dragon typing. I believe it is a bit faster, and it has a different move pool a little bit with options like Hurricane for flying type stab damage and a bit of a rain synergy. Perhaps Iron Jugulis can fit on a rain team. Also has Knock Off, which the original Hydreigon does not have. And you can use a Booster Energy, which is a little bit useful, allowing you to get very speedy by boosting up your highest stat, which can easily be speed with the plus nature. Taunt can stall break, and Iron Jugulis is considered an artisan Pokemon. Unfortunately, it's ranked in the RUBL tier, pretty low rank for this fella. Can't imagine why, that seems wrong. But competitively, I suppose there are superior Pokemon that fill this archetype, aren't there? Especially since Darkrai hit the scene. So there you go. Sandy Shocks is the past Paradox form of Magneton, and it is up next. And this is kind of a weird one. It's definitely distinct from the original Magneton, you can't deny that. This is an electric ground type Pokemon. It's walking on magnet legs. That's a little bit strange, but that's what they've done. Electric Ground is an interesting stab combo and a pretty nice defensive typing too, since you got Electric Immunity to give yourself some entry points. You have Earth Power for ground stab, which is cool. And this is also a unique electric type special attacker with access to hazards. You have both Stealth Rock and Spikes on this Pokemon. Unfortunately, Sandy Shocks has a big drawback, which is no way to hit ground type super effectively, unlike other electric types. That's one of the big things you need as an electric type special attacker, and Sandy Shocks usually has to Terra and use Terra Blast for such a benefit. But even with its limitations, it's ranked in the UU tier, fairly respectable, and it had a stint of pretty good OU viability before a lot of electric types came out. This was one of the better ones in the game, and it still sets itself apart from others with its access to hazards and that unique typing. Fairly distinct from other electric types. And now we have Iron Hands up next, a future form of Hariyama. Despite the fairly uninspiring name, this is one of the cooler ones, I would say. Electric fighting type that is fairly functional as a bulky attacker. The stats are kind of absurd, with absolutely enormous HP attack and respectable defense considering how high the HP is. Iron Hands is pretty good in OU. It's niche, and it's not ranked OU officially because other similar Pokemon are usually better, but Iron Hands stands out with its sheer bulk, its breaking power, and all of its coverage with the elemental punches. Iron Hands is pretty cool against Moltres. It's a little bit more effective against Moltres than Great Tusk is because it's got the Stab Thunder Punch. Punching Glove is a cool item on this because it allows you to ignore contact moves and also get bonus damage on your punching moves. This keeps you safe against Rocky Helmet, Rough Skin, Flame Body, all those effects trying to punish physical attackers, which is very, very good. And in the Pokemon trading card game, this guy's unbelievable. Iron Hands EX. I get to have 2 prize cards? I thought Christmas was months ago. What's happening here? 2 prize cards? Thank you very much. Iron Boulder is up next. The names are so bad on the future Pokemon, folks. What have they done? Iron Boulder is the name of this Pokemon. They earnestly put that. They earnestly called it that. Anyway, this is future Robot Terrakion. It's pretty lame. It's Rock Psychic. It's a worse typing than rock fighting. It ends up being a better Pokemon though because it can use booster energy and it has high speed. This is the fastest of the Paradox Pokemon, which has its value. It can outrun all of the other ones post booster energy and outrun many things. Pretty good for speed control. It also has a very good signature move, Mighty Cleave, which is a 95 power, 100% accurate rock move. That alone is really good. And it also bypasses protection, so it can break through Gliscor spam and protect another protector Pokemon. The physical move pool is also quite powerful. But the Pokemon is very one-dimensional, vulnerable to Pokemon like Landorus Therian and other common physical checks like Zamazenta, perhaps Dondozo, etc. It's ranked UUBL, it's fairly okay, but it does have shortcomings in the tier. Up next is Walking Wake, the past Paradox form of Suicune, and it is very different. It's got a water dragon typing, which is pretty damn good. And unlike Suicune, who is more of a bulky, calm mind setup sweeper, this is just an all-out aggressive sun threat. It of course has photosynthesis, just like all the other ancient Paradox forms for that boost in the sun. But this one is specifically designed to thrive in sun rather than using booster energy because of this move right here, Hydro Steam. An 80 power, water type special attack that actually gains damage in the sun instead of having its damage reduced. Usually, sun reduces the damage of water moves, but this move ignores that and in fact gains a bonus in the sun. It flips the whole weather system on its head. Kind of a unique mechanic, and if you're running a Sun team in Gen 9, Walking Wake is pretty much an auto-include. It is really, really good, because Sun teams can struggle with having too many Pokemon of the same type. Most Sun synergy Pokemon in the past have been Fire types and Grass types, so you find yourself vulnerable to all the same weaknesses, but the fact that you can throw on a Water Dragon type Pokemon really fills out your type requirements, gives you a lot of really nice resistances. This can come in on a lot. It's pretty nice typing defensively, and it's good stab combo, and your main stab move for Hydro Steam is buffed in the sun, so you're a great breaker. It's just really fantastic on Sun teams. And also, if they happen to be a Rain team and they make Rain, you can still function, because Hydro Steam is still getting buffed in the rain too. So it's a bit of counterplay against the enemy weather as well. Walking Wake is ranked in OU, and it's quite a good Pokemon. It pretty much just fits on Sun teams though. I think you could use it on Rain teams maybe, or just as a general breaker, but its main role is as a sun threat, so fairly limited in how it's used, but in that one job it's extremely effective. Iron Crown is up next, also known as Iron Brian. This is the future Paradox form of Cobalion, and it's one of the better ones. A lot of people thought this Pokemon would suck when they first saw it, myself included. I mean, Steel Psychic is not the typing it once was. Many Steel Psychics of the past have fallen off in a big way, and it seemed a little plain. Seems like it would have a rough existence against enemies such as Kingambit, Dragapult, etc., common Pokemon in the format, but this Pokemon surprised me and many people with how effective it is in OU here. My favorite set is the Assault Vest set, because this is a good defensive switch in against a lot of stuff, such as Iron Valiant, Primarina, Enamorus, Clefable, etc. And it's also really fast. These stats don't look impressive, but this is actually like a pretty nice high special defense and good HP, considering how fast and threatening it is. So this is a more proactive Assault Vest pivot compared to some other ones, because this outruns a lot of important stuff. It's faster than Glimmora, and it can hit Glimmora with Tachyon Cutter, which is a really good Steel-type special attack. It has perfect accuracy, hits twice, both hits are 50 power each, so this can break Focus Sashes, it can break through substitutes, and the ability Sturdy as well. And it's just a really high power, higher damage Steel type attack. It's very good. Stab Future Sight also applies a lot of pressure to stuff in this generation, with enemies like Great Tusk and Zamazenta really struggling to switch around when Future Sight is in play. Future Sight will hit 2 turns after being used, and it has a massive power of 120, so great thing to do after you defensively switch in on something. You click Future Sight and then you get out of there, and that Future Sight is just going to make things really annoying for them as they struggle to switch around, and you're applying a lot more pressure with that. And of course you can pivot with Volt Switch. This is the other big thing. Great way to generate momentum and keep pressure up, and it even serves as a bit of electric coverage. Focus Blast is also very nice to have, hitting those dark types that would otherwise give you trouble. Maybe catching a Kingambit coming in. Iron Crown can also just run a Choice Specs set for even further direct aggression, and it hits pretty hard with it. You can also run a more aggressive Iron Crown. One way is with Booster Energy, another way is with Weakness Policy, which gives you offensive boosts if you get hit by a super effective move. You can then use Stored Power and even Agility to boost yourself up further and sweep the game with this. Iron Crown, surprisingly good, versatile, and fits with the pace of Gen 9. It's really nice as a defensive pivot that is also fast and can deal respectable damage. That's kind of perfect for Gen 9 OU, which is a very fast-paced metagame. Up next is Iron Treads, the future Paradox form of Donphan, Robotic Elephant. And Iron Treads is very good. It's got a ground steel typing, which historically has been great on Pokemon like Excadrill. This Pokemon feels kind of just like an upgraded Excadrill, to be honest. It's much faster and bulkier than Excadrill is, with overall superior stats. It has Stealth Rock and Rapid Spin just like Excadrill, and it even has Ice coverage with Ice Spinner, pivoting with Volt Switch. Its move pool is very good, and it can even use the Booster Energy item for that crucial speed boost to outrun everything, spin with some proactivity. Sometimes even go crazy with ground ice coverage here, which is very strong. You are of course competing with Great Tusk a little bit for this space, but Iron Treads is much more effective against the common Raging Bolt, another Paradox Pokemon, and an Electric Dragon type. Iron Treads defensively is very good into both of those types. Iron Treads also helps your team out against fairy types with its fairy resistance, and generally just provides good utility and a little bit of aggression. It's easy to see why this is an OU ranked and effective Paradox Pokemon. Up next is Iron Moth, the future form of Volcarona. Even though this has one of the worst names, I think it's an alright visual design and it's pretty distinct from the original Volcarona. The main thing setting this apart from Volcarona is the fact that it doesn't get Quiver Dance. Instead of Quiver Dance, it has immediate boost potential from the booster energy, which gets consumed instantly. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. It also has a different typing with Fire, Poison, which is kind of a good stab combo. It's complementary. Fire hits the steel types that Poison cannot hit. Iron Moth has good stats with an incredible 140 base special attack and a high speed as well. You do need to mess with the EBs a little bit to get a speed boost from booster energy, so maybe this base special attack is a bit deceptive. You can't quite run that if you want to pose more of a threat with booster energy, but you still hit very hard. And Fiery Dance is kind of a crazy move sometimes because this move has 80 power, so it's a pretty good stab move on its own, but it has the 50% chance to raise your special attack by 1. If you proc this a couple times, you can just run away with games that you had no business winning. Very, very strong effect if you hit it. Sludge Wave is great, Poison Stab and Dazzling Gleam is good coverage. You also have options like Energy Ball and such. But Dazzling Gleam is being used here alongside Terra Fairy for both defensive and offensive synergy. Iron Moth is a straightforward and directly aggressive special attacker. Can be a bit unreliable since sometimes it needs that Fiery Dance proc to actually break through, but you can't deny its inherent strengths. Up next is Roaring Moon, the ancient form of Salamence, and this guy is kind of cool. Looks similar to Mega Salamence with the wing shape and stuff, and also of all the weirdo names of these Paradox Pokemon, this is one of the better ones in my opinion. It evokes something grand and magical. Roaring Moon is pretty distinct from Salamence. It's still a Dragon Dance sweeper like Salamence was, but this has a Dragon Dark type combination, which is probably superior. It's definitely superior, actually. I'll be more definitive with that statement. This is a superior typing. Dark is an amazing offensive type in the modern world, and especially because this has Knockoff, one of the best physical attacks in the game, which deals significant damage while removing the enemy's item. Roaring Moon is a great physical move pull with access to Earthquake and other such coverage like Iron Head, and Acrobatics is also a great fit alongside your booster energy. This item gets consumed and boosts your stat instantly, which of course upgrades Acrobatics, which doubles in power if you have no held item. And this is kind of the original Terra Abuser, because Terra Flying is so good on this. It not only provides you with a resistance to fighting type attacks incoming, it buffs Acrobatics up, granting it stab damage. So you hit incredibly hard with this. It's a 110 power flying type attack post boost, and you're boosting up, and you're going insane. This is just a classic physical sweeper and one of the better ones on offensive teams. Very straightforward Pokemon and very good Pokemon in Gen 9 OU. Great Neck is up next. Great Neck is Raikou from the ancient past. He used to have a very long neck back then, making him very different and very distinct. He also has storm cloud shaped mane around his head, which is quite interesting, looking like a thunder cloud, but it's actually part of his body. Raging Bolt is extremely good. It has an electric dragon typing, which is powerful. Its stats are incredible. Massive special attack and HP stats. And it has the amazing new move Thunderclap, which is basically special attacking version of Sucker Punch. It has 70 power, electric type, and it will have priority on it if the target is attacking you. So this makes up for Raging Bolt's fairly low speed. The fact that it has this incredible priority stab option with Calm Mind and Thunderclap for priority, and just generally great bulk and good immediate pressure from the booster energy, as well as terrestrialization for defensive opportunities to boost up. This Pokemon was an instant success, and it's definitely reshaped the meta. You've seen Iron Treads became better because this exists, and we need more responses to it. This feels a little bit like a special attacking King Gambit, not quite as powerful as King Gambit, but similar in its effectiveness as a bulky attacker, just instead of on the physical side, it's on the special side. Up next is Iron Valiant. the best future form in OU and one of my favorite new Gen 9 Pokemon because I love mixed attackers, and this is a classic mixed attacker for modern times. It has 130 base attack, 120 base special attack, so it can operate in both areas. And it has incredible options for attacks in both areas too. Iron Valiant is also incredibly fast, and with a booster energy boost, this is a frightening thing to stare down. Fairy fighting typing is also amazing. Not only for its stab, but defensively. This has a ×4 resistance to Dark. It's not worried about Sucker Punch at all. That's one of its best traits, because Sucker Punch King Gambit is so common. Iron Valiant has coverage to hit just about everything in the metagame. It has knockoff, which is amazing for coverage and utility, knocking off items. Encore is such a good move in the Gen 9 meta. It punishes so many things, whether it's Sucker Punch, Thunderclap, or any boosting or recovery option. Encore is incredible. Iron Valiant is versatile, dynamic. It can be whatever you want it to be, and it has been outstanding since the beginning, and it will be outstanding forever in this format. It's a definitive Pokemon of Gen 9, and I think it is one of the best parts about it, to be honest. The fact that Iron Valiant exists. I love the gameplay this creates, the team building possibilities, and it also doesn't feel that broken in my opinion because of how frail it is defensively, and it also gives unique Pokemon a job. Like a lot of the stuff that are good against Iron Valiant are viable because of that. So I overall enjoy Iron Valiant's metagame impact. I enjoy playing with it. I think this is what a modern offensive threat should look like. Versatile, powerful, but cool in how you can use it. A slam dunk in my opinion. A very cool Pokemon all around. And then of course there's Great Tusk, one of the kings of Gen 9 OU. Great Tusk is one of the most used Pokemon in this format for very good reason. It is just incredibly useful and easy to fit on teams. It feels like the new Landorus Therian. Great Tusk has a ground fighting typing, which is good offensively and defensively. It has stab headlong rush, stab close combat, so it hits incredibly hard. It also has rapid spin, which is very important in modern times where defog is more scarce and rapid spinners are also all worried about Goldengo. Great Tusk is a rapid spinner that can apply lethal force to Goldengo with Headlong Rush, so that's what makes it so good, really. Great Tusk is also just incredible physical check to many different things with its fantastic HP and defense and crucial Dark resistance. Great Tusk is able to withstand hits from a plethora of different popular physical attackers in the format. Rapid Spin also serves to act as a speed boost for Great Tusk, and with this, Great Tusk can be an offensive threat. It's got all that utility and defensive value, and it has offense, especially with its great stab options and access to Ice Spinner, which is kind of perfect to hit Gliscor. Some have even been running Head Smash to hit Moltres and Zapdos, who are pretty common as Great Tusk answers recently. Knockoff is of course always amazing to remove an item and just for dark coverage. Great Tusk can be a more utility set like this with the helmet and more utility options like that, but it can also be a full-on sweeper with booster energy and bulk up. This is probably the easiest Pokemon to fit on teams in Gen 9 OU. You can just chuck Great Tusk on any team and it will do you well. Incredibly powerful and reliable Pokemon. But now we move on to the Paradox Pokemon too powerful for Gen 9 OU. The ones that got banned. The ones that shook the very foundations of Earth. One of them is Gouging Fire. Entei with a hat on. This is a Fire Dragon type Pokemon, which is kind of an amazing type combo, offensively and defensively. Great stab that complements one another, since Fire can hit steals, which Dragon can't hit. But Fire also grants an immunity to Will-O-Wisp, which is one of the best ways to counteract physical sweepers, so you just have an inbuilt immunity to burn. Fire and Dragon are very complementary defensively because Fire is usually weak to water. Oh, Dragon resists water. That's cancelled out. Dragon is usually vulnerable to Fairy and Ice, but Fire resists both of those. They're perfect for one another in every way. Gouging Fire is very effective as a Dragon Dance sweeper with its overall very good and even stat distribution, with mostly the bulk being really incredible and high speed as well considering. Its attack is also serviceable. You have great stab moves. Loaded Dice plus Scales Shot is a good option. Loaded Dice causes multi-hit moves to hit at least 4 types, and Scales Shot is a fantastic multi-hit move that also grants a speed boost at the cost of -1 defense. This can help you ramp up. Flare Blitz obviously hits really hard. You can also run Heat Crash if you prefer to not have recoil, bringing you down. Something that Gouging Fire was also using was Breaking Swipe, a dragon type attack that can lower the enemy's attack every time you click it. With a good defensive Terra type to withstand incoming ground type moves, this could let you just attack while weakening the enemy and living all their hits. Your coverage is incredible with options like Earthquake and Gouging Fire could also be used as a choice band sweeper on Sun teams. This is a fire type with photosynthesis, so it's got fire stab, sun boosts on the fire moves, and even photosynthesis boosting it even further. So Gouging Fire with choice band Flare Blitz in the sun is an unbelievably hard hitting attack. This Pokemon, with all the different Terra types it could use, all the different ways it could counteract its checks, and also the fact it could go both Choice Band and Dragon Dance Sweeper, was a little bit much for OU. It's just kind of an all-in-one package as a Dragon Dance Sweeper. And the whole game kind of became about guessing what the Gouging Fire set was, which can feel a little bit random and unpredictable. Unfortunately, in Ubers, this is not the best Pokemon, as the power level is of course much higher up there, with legendaries and stuff running around, but absolutely one of the most powerful Paradox Pokemon in the game. Up next is Iron Bundle, and it's sometimes easy to forget just how absurd this Pokemon is in all regards. Iron Bundle is Robotic Delibird from the future, with stats that rival those of legendaries and all the tools on the planet at its disposal. Iron Bundle is a insanely powerful Pokemon, and I don't know why. Look at it, it's a little penguin. Why did they make this so broken? This thing has unbelievable stats. Most notably, the speed is higher than Koraidon. This is literally faster than Koraidon and Varidon by a single point. The special attack is incredible, 124, especially considering how fast it is. Think of Dragapult. Dragapult's big trade-off is that its special attack isn't that high, but this guy gets to have 124 special attack, and the most random of all, 114 defense. I still can scarcely believe this one. Is it because he's got a metal coating or something? I don't know why they gave this the defense stat. It looks like I could punch it and it would break into a million pieces, but for some reason 114 defense. I don't know. Ask the creator. Maybe the creator can illuminate that. It has an ice water typing, which is defensively not great, but this is a fast offensive threat, so that doesn't matter. Offensively, this is incredible, especially because you have access to Freeze Dry, which is an ice type special attack that hits water types super effectively. So the one thing that could switch in your stab combination, water types, no longer can. Iron Bundle has pretty much perfect stab coverage, which is insane. And it has the ability to pivot with U-turn or flip turn. This Pokemon in the past was quite good in Ubers. Unfortunately, Miraidon has been banned from the format, and Miraidon was an enabler for this because it creates electric terrain to activate the Quark Drive. But even without that, it's still fairly okay. I think it's around a B rank on the viability, which is pretty good. Probably mostly because it outruns Koraidon, and it has stab to threaten it, and it's just a good special attacker that can even pivot on switch-ins, such as Blissey. I personally like this Pokemon. I think they should make more absurd Pokemon that don't make any damn sense. They should make Robotic Kakuna that has 255 in all of its stats, and Magic Bounce and access to the move Light That Burns the Sky. They should do more of this. Take the worst Pokemon of all time and turn it into a robot and make it really broken. It's also funny when people criticize ROM hacks and fan mods for, you know, taking a bad Pokemon and buffing it in really straightforward ways, and then the official developers made Iron Bundle, which is the same exact thing. It's the same exact thing as what they're complaining. Anyway, Iron Bundle is funny and cool and very powerful. But the best Paradox Pokemon in the entire game is Fluttermane, the ancient Paradox form of Misdreavus. Fluttermane is way better than the original Misdreavus. It has a ghost fairy typing, which is just amazing. Two of the best types in the game combined. You can't go too wrong with that. It's an amazing stab combo, and defensively it's also incredible. This Pokemon's stats are off the charts with 135 in special attack, special defense, and speed. You match the speed of Koraidon, and you even kind of counter it because photosynthesis means you get a speed boost on top of that. This thing is absurdly fast, absurdly threatening, and just has amazing stab. It even has options like Calm Mind, Mystical Fire for coverage, which is also boosted by Sun if you have it, which is easy to have in Gen 9 Ubers. Plus it lowers special attack. Psyshock is great to defeat special walls like Blissey, Clodsire, etc. Even to this day, this is a fairly viable Pokemon in Gen 9 Ubers because of the Sun synergy, because of its unique offensive and defensive profiles, and just being really strong overall, rivaling the damage output of some of the most powerful legendaries, and even being better than many of them. Fluttermane is a more relevant threat in Gen 9 Ubers than Pokemon like Palkia and Reshiram and Dialga. Fluttermane is doing better than they are. And there you have it, folks. Every Paradox Pokemon ranked. Who is your favorite? Statistically, it's probably Iron Jugulus. That's just the most likely option, but mine would have to be Iron Valiant. Love the design of that Pokemon all around. What about you? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching as always.